Okay. Hi, Chau. Nice to see you here.
Hello.
Hi. So your name is Chau Tran, and were a tutor and are still a tutor for Mathemagic, and you've now moved to
Mm,
Holland.
mhm.
Um, can you tell us a little bit about your background and where you grew up?
So I was born in Ho Chi Minh City, Vietnam,
Mhm.
and then I studied like up to high school in Ho Chi Minh City, and then I moved to Hong Kong, studying Bachelor of Science in the University of Hong Kong,
Oh,
and
wow.
yeah, so I graduated in January 2021, and then that was when I started joining the institution as well as a tutor, mostly in biology, chemistry, and also math. So I think it has been 6 months
Hmm.
or 7 months, and then now I moved to Holland or the Netherlands to start my master in like molecular medicine. Yeah.
Molecular medicine. Oh my God. So, what's it like when you just landed in Holland? Have you been to Holland before or not?
Yeah, I went to Holland 3 years ago for a short exchange program, also kind of interdisciplinary research, but
Hmm.
I was in a different city. So it's more like a coming back, but also like rediscovering. So it's quite new because I'm in a different city.
So, which city are
Yeah.
you in now?
Rotterdam is a very
Okay.
big, vibrant city.
Yeah.
Yeah, it
Do you
is.
like do you
Yeah.
like it? I mean, you've only been there a few days, right?
It's huge. My first impression is I kind of like it. It has a mix of different things, a lot of things to discover as well.
Oh
Yeah.
my God, I'm sure. Okay, so how did you feel when you left Hong Kong? Were you a little bit sad or were you excited for your new adventure?
Both because I was in Hong Kong for like almost 5 years,
Hmm.
and not just studying, but I had a community. I have friends, and then when I joined the institution, I also have my students. So there were different like connections, and then a lot of memories with my friends, my teachers, my school, my work, and also other relationships outside of the uni.
Hmm.
So when I left, it was like you're moving away from your second family. So now I'm trying to build, like back home is my family, but then Hong Kong is also kind of a second home to me in the past 5 years.
Mm,
Yeah. So yes.
I'm sure you built some wonderful relationships. Oh, you know, so okay, well, in terms of your university, so in Hong Kong, which university did you go to?
I went to Hong Kong U. Yeah.
Hong Kong U, okay.
Mm.
And specifically, what did you study at Hong Kong U?
So my major was biochemistry,
Hmm.
and then I have a minor in psychology as well. Yeah.
Mm.
So for my
So
undergraduate.
out of all that, which courses did you like the most?
Oh, I think for biochemistry, it would be my final year project in
Hmm.
my fourth year, for two reasons. Specifically, one was because biochemistry is such a difficult topic for me in the first years. I couldn't quite understand why we dive so deep into like many details. And there
Hmm.
were, if you know a bit about biochemistry, then it's you learn about chemical processes in living organism. So in
Hmm.
a way, it's very chemistry, but it also very biology. So let's say for one example would be me studying about signaling pathways,
Hmm.
and it's like a huge map. It's like even more complicated than the MTR map in Hong Kong.
Okay,
I
well, yeah.
it doesn't yeah, it's kind of look like that with just more intersections. It's like yeah, so it's very complicated. So
Do you
I
mean
couldn't
signaling pathways in the body or the mind or everywhere in general? Or
in your whole system.
oh,
So yeah, like you started with some ligands or like some molecules act like a signal, and then it trigger different pathway and it cross-link other pathway and influencing like downstream kind of results. And it relates a lot to like diseases and also normal functions in your body.
Right.
So in order for you to, there were just so many details, and then I'm not really good at exam, I would say, when it comes to just memorizing without understanding.
Mhm.
So I think towards the end of my study, I kind of understand it more, and then it would transforming when I actually joined a research group at the university. So actually doing research and see how those knowledge could be implemented into doing something that's meaningful. So that's why I really like the course. Yeah.
And then you realize that all the simple things that we take for granted are so complicated, right?
It is. It
all
is.
Like the simple human things and this is why when we try and use AI and program AI to do things is so complicated, because the human body is just magical. Wow. What was your final year project about? Could you tell us a little bit more about that, like perhaps?
So I was doing so the main focus was to integrate a different molecular recognition mechanism for diagnosis of infectious diseases. So
that's quite relevant right now.
Yeah, it is. I started in July 2019. So there were times that I actually felt like, wow, like what I'm doing is actually very relevant, especially halfway through my final year project. So I was working with Professor Julian Tanner from HKU Medical School. So his lab is on working on aptamer. So it's like antibody. So antibody is like a type of protein that recognize antigens or like some sort of biomarker for diseases. So we're trying to use a different type of molecular recognition. So don't use antibodies, but use aptamers. So the difference is that so antibody is protein based, but aptamer is like DNA, RNA, or nucleic acid base. So the most important reason is that it reduces the cost and simplify the synthesis process, kind of, and increase the sensitivity and specificity. So the lab already developed some sort of aptamers, and then I was trying to make like a strip test for malaria. Yeah.
Oh, for malaria. Is it easier to recognize with the equipment that we have than the classic methods, or?
You mean antibody or?
Yeah, I mean the method you're working on now.
Oh, the method I'm working. Yeah, it ideally it would.
You say it's cheaper and easier to synthesize, right?
Yeah, because for antibody you need, let's say you get antibody from like a cell or like an animal. So there's like a product, like a pathway. So from DNA to RNA and then to protein, which is your antibody. But then for aptamer, you can make the sequence, which is like top down, and then you can specifically select the aptamers that you want to recognize your biomarker. So that's why it's like a shorter process. And then just in general, making nucleic acid or single strand oligos are much more cheaper than making the protein. Yeah, so that's why.
Are we manufacturing those ourselves? Okay.
Yeah. So aptamers you can manufacture yourself, and there's already been a select process that people already developed. So it's like very specific for you to select what aptamer bind to what biomarker that you're targeting. So in the future, I think people in the field want to make like a glossary or like a library of aptamers binding to all of the proteins. So then eventually moving away from using antibodies to using aptamers. Yeah.
Wow. What's the timeline for this? When do you think we'll be at the stage where there's a glossary and we'll be able to know which one binds with which and probably will cure a lot of diseases that way, right?
Yeah, because you can also use it not just for like external tests, you can use it as integration of drug delivery, for example. And then aptamer can bind to some cellular signals on top like on the cellular membrane, and then trigger some process or just for specific target of drug delivery. For timeline, I've only been working on this for 2 years. So, but I saw, like, let's say my lab's efforts, everyone is working really hard towards it. So hopefully maybe 5 years, I hope that we'll have,
That's
this
amazing.
into.
So in Rotterdam, where are you now? Like what is the center, school, or university that you're at now?
I'll be starting my master in Erasmus Medical Center. So yeah, so it's so the one of a very big university in the city is Erasmus University Rotterdam. Is at the different campus. So I'll be studying at medical campus, which is nearer to the medical center as well.
Wonderful. Yeah. Oh, I bet you're looking forward to that. And will you have access also to a very good lab where you can continue your research?
Definitely, because it's a research master. So I'll have like a few courses and then have seminars, and then they also encourage me to do lab rotation to kind of get to know the professors and different environments. So I will have like a 6-month internship in this first year, and then choose a lab to do a year-long research project in my second year.
Wow. Do you think you'll do a PhD afterwards?
Actually, that will be,
Sounds like it. Wow, that's amazing. Well, I wish you luck with that. That's impressive. And I hope your research continues, because it looks like there's so much work to do, right? So long to do it, but it'll be worth it in the end. And we might change something which all of humanity can use. Can you imagine?
That would be fantastic.
Yeah. All right. So I have then maybe that's going to lead me to a couple of controversial questions. What do you think of the current pandemic with your experience in biology and perhaps virology? Do you think that we'll ever get over it, or do you think we just have to learn to live with this new virus?
Oh, I think in terms of let's say you can tell that the virus is still mutating. So there are different variants. So I think it would be it won't end immediately, or at least in a couple of years. But I do believe that if everyone, like, all the communities and all the countries are working together to control it, and also to find better ways to diagnose, treat, and also prevent, then we can end it, not like eradicate it, but I think there will be one point that we learn how to cope with it. So like you say, maybe live with it, but then I wouldn't say it will be the same as the current situation where there are still a lot of restrictions. I would look forward to like improvements in terms of how we live with the disease. So the other day I was discussing with a professor of mine, and then he was actually saying he's thinking that eventually, it's a very interesting opinion, because he was saying a virus need a host to live, right? But if it causes like so bad infection and pneumonia that eventually the host die, then the viruses do not have an environment to sustain. So in his opinion, and he's in humanities and philosophy major, so he has a very different kind of opinion. And he was saying, I think the virus will mutate so that it will just become a flu, because it needs a host to survive as well.
Oh, you mean like it'll be a livable virus because the variants which are too strong are not sustainable, not self-sustainable?
So
that's an interesting opinion.
But I would say, he has a very different perspective. I was like, wow, that's so optimistic, because I think at least in science we just worry about like it keep mutating and it spread faster, this virus. but the severity doesn't decrease, right? It just kill more and more people out. It's spread more. And then also we have to kind of think about, or do you need like a third dose to boost your immune system now that there are so many variants? Do you have to change your treatment? Because when you use so many medication, there's also the upcoming wave of worrying about whether we will resistant, like humans will be resistant to certain type of drugs. Then you won't respond to that as well. So that's actually the like that's something that we might worry later on, which actually can happen after this. And also there are other aspects such as depression or other result, like consequences that come along with this virus. So I think there are a lot of things that might change afterwards, but I would still want to be an optimist and thinking that we can work together too.
Well, I'm glad you're optimistic. That's a good thing. So another, I guess another controversial question, but I don't want to talk about the virus for too long because I think but I value your opinion on it because I think it's quite interesting. You must have insight that we don't. So do you think the vaccines that we have are quite effective right now? And do you think that perhaps we're going to develop better vaccines and better treatments soon?
I took Pfizer. So it's a very new type of vaccine. So it's mRNA vaccine. I think the efficiency that are reported for different vaccine varies. So I would say that it is quite effective, the current vaccination that we have. But I would wait for reports on whether it will be effective with different variants as well. And then also, I guess, how long like this will last as well. Let's say if you took the vaccination in 2021, then how long can this prevent you from similar type of coronavirus in the future, or different type of viruses in the future, and whether your antibody levels will it increase or decrease, or will it keep the same? In terms of medication, I think currently it's, I think they're just different type of medication that would be implemented to treat different patients. So, but I'm not like, I'm not so sure about that because, yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, maybe there's some different treatments, but that might come up. That could be quite interesting. Yeah, so I don't want to dwell on this, but I thought it might be interesting to get your perspective on all of that because it's definitely quite current. But let's perhaps shift to your experience with tutoring. Yeah. So you've been teaching kids from quite young ages to sort of GCSE level and some higher level biology. How do you like to prepare your lessons?
So first thing is normally, and also it's something that you actually suggested me in the beginning, is to ask the parents and the student very clearly what are their expectations, and then what are the current levels of the student, and what sort of things that I want to, like they want like us to target to improve. So I think that's like something was really useful that you suggested me from the beginning to ask those things first, because it gave me like an idea. Okay, I know about the students' levels of studying, and then some sort of things that they might want to work more on. So then I wouldn't. And then another thing is that for biology specifically, or even math, you gave me some reference books, so that were really useful, because I can kind of see the whole curriculum more holistically. So then I have those two things to prepare. And then for my first lesson, I always prepare like one of the topic that I think would be most important to students. So let's say for biology, I normally
Oh,
start with
one of the key topics of the year, you mean?
yes, yes.
Ah, that's
One of the
interesting. Yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So for biology, normally I'll start with like introduction to cells. Because I think high school or even secondary school students struggle with learning about cell, which is very abstract, and they can't even see it. So I normally prepare that, and then I would spend like 45 to 50 minutes to go through the lesson, and the rest will actually I would spend talking to the parents and the student to understand more of like what do they want to achieve through my lessons. And then that helped me prepare further lesson later on. Yeah, because sometimes I have very smart students, so I like they can just read. I just have to give them like instruction. Oh, you read this and you do this, then they understand it. So instead of me giving like normally I would prepare a PowerPoint because biology is very visual, so it's difficult to for me. And I'm not that good at drawing everything, so sometimes
it takes time, right? It's better if somebody's already drawn it perfectly for you, and if it's you know, a rendered image or something.
So I normally would prepare like a PowerPoint with a lot of pictures, and then we discuss that. So it depends on the student. So if the students prefer me to talk more, then I'll talk, and then I'll always ask questions. I'll just keep asking, or ask them to repeat what I just said. For some students, they're like really fast in like catching up, and they're also very independent in their learning. So I'll prepare, instead of me giving like the lesson, I'll ask them, okay, you read this, and then next time we'll discuss these questions. So the lesson will become a discussion instead of me saying so many things. And that's like something I always try to do, because I think in biology, like students have to memorize so many things. So if you don't ask them to say it, then probably it just slip away. That was my experience studying biology.
Right.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
That sounds very good and very thorough. I know you're very precise in how you prepare your classes, and that's a lot of the feedback that I got from people was that you're very well organized. So that's nice. So in terms of tutoring, what is your favorite part? Is it
I have many favorite parts. One would be, let's say I saw the students move away from being scared of the topic. I have my first student, I was teaching her mathematics, and I think she was a bit, she has very bad experiences, or like she had many gaps with math. So then so she's a bit avoidant, like she kind of not really willing to study it at the beginning, but then at the end, like she wasn't scared anymore, and then she that's like something that I find very rewarding as a tutor, like seeing your students not being scared of the topic, because I feel like that's
taking the fear away.
Yeah, because I think that's the starting point for them to actually approach the topic themselves. Because I think eventually, as a tutor, I want my students to be able to study by themselves. And then as a tutor, I'm more of like someone guiding and then helping them to find their own way to learning.
Because ultimately you have to let them go, right?
Yeah,
you're not going to be there for them every time. So
yeah. And then when they enter university, then that's like very crucial, I think, to self-study.
Sure. Actually, I was thinking, you know, you must have had a different experience in Vietnam to Hong Kong, right? So what's your experience in terms of, you know, the difference between the kids learning in Vietnam and then the way that the children you've been exposed to in Hong Kong, who obviously go to these really good schools? I mean, I know you went to a gifted school, right, which is quite wonderful yourself. what would you say the difference is in terms of the style of learning that you were exposed to in Vietnam and what you've been exposed to in Hong Kong so far?
I think back home, I learned all the subjects in Vietnamese. So
Oh, wow. That's amazing. And then you translated all these biological terms in English.
wow, yeah, that's why. Yeah, my first year was
Wow.
a lot of struggling because everything was it was new, and then there's so many terminologies I've never learned before.
These are scientific words, right? This is crazy.
So I would say I felt like back home the knowledge and the pace of updating knowledge like in public schools or even other schools are not as fast as those in Hong Kong. I think the first student that I taught biology actually helped her prepare her project on gene editing. And I think when I heard about that, I was like, and she hadn't even learned about biology. It was just her science subject at school. And then I was so amazed because I didn't even learn about that when I was in my final year of high school, like my senior year. So it was really fast, the education.
Oh, wow. So the sort of levels that they're learning and at what age and wow.
I think all the students in Hong Kong that I met, their knowledge, their textbooks and what they encounter at school, like they get from school, are all very like new. And then also I think back home is more like traditional education. So the teachers giving the lesson and then the students learning, especially in biology, like memorizing a lot and doing exam. But I think it is changing a bit, but particularly found like many students having projects to do and like group projects, poster and like just different activities to actually integrate their knowledge.
Yeah, so that's interesting because you know, a lot of what's been researched now in terms of education, like you said earlier, some students are visual, but this whole idea of growth mindset. And the idea of growth mindset is that project-based work leads to inquiry. So if you're doing something in a team, like if you ask a team of 5 to make a poster, like even if there's some weaker students and some stronger students in the team, they're going to collaborate. And this is kind of like what work is later on when you grow up, right? So you have to learn to collaborate with other people. The students who are not very engaged or motivated, they have to do a little bit more because they're part of a team, so they don't want to let the team down. The students who are a little bit at the top of the group are going to help the other students, so they're going to see what teaching feels like, and maybe they know, you know, that if once you become the teacher and somebody's talking while you're talking, it's kind of, it bugs you a bit. So now you become a better student yourself. And so the whole growth mindset idea is project-based work, mixed ability work, and it's not so much, a lot of visual help, like every student is visual. We say, you know, we used to separate and say some students are visual, some here, some are kinesthetic, and now we say that all students are visual. So everybody benefits from visual help. I didn't think I was very visual, but maybe I am. So, you know, that's what the growth mindset ideas are. And so now most of the schools, like perhaps HKIS, which is a brilliant school, and a lot of the schools in Hong Kong have that approach where they incorporate all this research about how to teach and child psychology that we discussed before, you know. So that's interesting. That's interesting. The differential in terms of when people learn different things that you were exposed to. Yeah.
Another thing is that, yeah, just one other thing is that I think the school in Hong Kong, they integrate a lot of technology. So sometimes students will share with me their platforms where they actually study.
Yeah.
And I think, especially in this pandemic, I think schools in Hong Kong, they really integrate a lot of technology so that the students can keep on learning and interact with each other while they might not be able to attend classes physically. Yeah, so I think that's really beneficial as well. Yeah,
it's true. I'm worried. I don't know if you can hear my kids. They've just come back into the house. I'm worried that you
Hello.
can. Now, can you hear them or not? Because
No, no.
I can. Oh my God, it's stressing me out. Okay. I just have two more questions for you. It's very interesting conversation. So I'm sorry if I kept you for longer than I anticipated, but I just have two questions. And one of them is, what advice would you have for students who are struggling at school?
Um, I would say, um, just acknowledge that you're struggling. So there's
Okay.
nothing wrong with it. Yeah, actually, because I feel like it. I think like when I struggle with certain subjects, I just acknowledge it first, and then it's kind of helped me neutralize it. So instead of me being terrified, I'm like, okay, I'm actually um, not do not do quite well with this, and moving away from like negative kind of emotion or immediate reaction, like take a step back and like acknowledge, okay, I'm not so good at with this subject, and I'm scared of this subject or something like that. And then think, because it will help you think, okay, then when you neutralize like your emotional reactions, then you can start thinking, how can I improve?
Right.
So maybe one way is to find a tutor that can help me, and then ask question. And then also maybe when you acknowledge it, you will realize like you can actually ask for help from your teachers, from your friends, and then also from your tutors or even your parents. Because maybe it's scary to say like, I cannot do this, I'll fail. But actually, if you're saying like, I'm scared that I'm gonna fail, so are there ways for me to improve so that I don't fail in the next exam? Or
That makes a lot of
and
sense.
yeah. And then also I think also have your specific goals with the subject that you want to study. So I think different students have different strengths and different difficulties in different subjects. So it's okay not to excel in all of them. Of course, we would try to, because
we want to, right? But to be gentle with yourself, you mean, so that you're because if you want to be perfect at everything, it's kind of it's actually impossible.
It is not possible
to be amazing at every single topic that is presented to you is actually impossible, but you can be as good as possible and push yourself a little bit. But yeah, I think I really like the idea that you're able to take a step back and recognize that it's causing you anxiety and acknowledging the emotion that comes with it, because a lot of the struggle that kids are going to have is when their own mind is, compressing their thought process, and so that the struggle might not even be with the topic anymore, but the desperation, the topic. And so just recognizing, okay, like I'm feeling a bit stressed about this, and I'm not doing this as well as, it's not perfect, but it's okay. I'm okay. So it's learning to be gentle with yourself is what I'm getting from what you said. And I really like that approach. That's what people do in mindfulness as well. Mindfulness is big at school. So not something that I learned when I was a kid, but then I married a mindfulness specialist. My wife does that. So she's good with emotions, and she's teaching me a lot about that. My second question, also a little bit similar to that, is what would you recommend to parents whose kids are struggling? So if you're a parent and your child is having difficulties, like what would you also be gentle with yourself and say, it's okay, they're gonna have difficulties, and how would you address it? Any advice that you have for parents?
Wow. I'm not a parent, so it's difficult for me too.
I am. I got 3.
But but let's say if I have a very young sibling, then I think instead of I think encouragement and patience are pretty important. So also like just encouraging them to acknowledge that they have some difficulties with certain topics. And at the same time, I think it's important for parents to help the student boost their confidence, because I don't think any students will be bad at everything. There has to be things that they're really good at and they really like to do as well. So how do you kind of say, maybe you're not good at chemistry, but then you're very good at arts. But then, in order for you to do arts, chemistry can help in certain ways as well. And then I would only expect you to.
It's far-fetched, but it's possible. Yeah, I like the connection there.
It was from because me myself, I think chemistry is quite difficult, but then I needed for and even I was majoring in biochemistry, but then I struggled with chemistry as well. But I feel like for me, the understanding can come later. Maybe you're struggling now, but I'm always like, there would be one point when I would really fully understand this. So that's more important to me than the current, maybe I get a C or an F, or maybe a C, not an F.
So you're saying comprehension is more important than the mark you're getting? To recognize that maybe the questions that were asked were not the right questions on a test, but actually you felt like you got to a good level of comprehension, and so it's okay.
So I think the parents can kind of give some encouragement like that, because I think eventually it's more important that the student do not scare of the topic and do not avoid it. Like even if they, because I think eventually either they grow to like certain subjects or they grow to like acknowledging that they don't like those subjects. And that's also quite important, because if you encourage them to explore and like try one more time instead of giving up, then let's say when they go to university, or like when they graduated from university, when they're choosing a job, then it's a process for them to learn like what they actually like and what they actually do not like. So I think that's like more important than like just forcing them to get A's in everything.
Yeah. Which is quite hard, but you know that sometimes also you can it might be a question of timing. Like you might not be in love with a certain topic at 12 years old, and at 17 suddenly you have like a resurgence of enthusiasm for it, because some things, people change, right? And children are people, and they change too. Like at a certain age they might not be in love with chemistry, and then at a later stage they might find that there's an interest for it because they have a need for it. And a lot of things come out of interest. Like if you develop an interest for it, then suddenly it's a lot easier to learn than if you're not interested at all. So yeah, that's nice. Oh well, thank you for the advice for parents. I'm sure that if there's any parents who decide to watch this, then they'll be glad to say, I'll be patient with my child, maybe one day they'll want to do chemistry. Yeah. Yeah, that's it. I don't have any other questions. I just wanted to catch up with you and see, what you're up to, your ideas. Obviously, we touched onto a few topics like this, and thanks for taking the time. I'm sure you're very busy, but it is important for me to manage to have a chat with you like that and see what you're doing. So do you have any words in closing?
I would just say I had a very wonderful time working with you and the team, actually, because
well, you're not done, you're still working sometimes.
But I would say is I have a lot of freedom to do a lot of things, which I actually like, because I like to plan my lesson. It's also very helpful for me to kind of relearn some of the things
your fundamentals.
That I learned. It's quite fun, and I think you did a really good match. I don't know how, but then I think I click with most of my students, I guess.
Oh, that's random. I think it's just because you're nice. Because maybe some people are, so my job is really matchmaking, that's true, but some people are very good, and I'll put you in that category, at being able to relate to a lot of people. Like some people are harder to get on with, like they're an acquired taste, right? Because they have specific things that they don't like or whatever. But some people are very open, and I feel like if you if you're very nice as a tutor to everybody that you meet, then the gelling is very easy, right? And then if you sometimes you don't like a certain situation, you try and be a little bit harsh, or you try and discipline a little bit too much, or whatever, and then suddenly there's like friction and difficult situations. And I don't think that's happened in your interactions. But I think also the kids that you've had are very nice kids, you know.
Yeah,
So
they
that
were really
really
nice.
helps. Yeah, if you had very difficult kids, sometimes kids can be difficult. Depends on the time of the day as well. You know, they might not be the same child at a different time of day. But yeah, well, that's it. You know, thanks so much for doing this, and I guess we'll have some updates from you from time to time with your research, and maybe if there's a major world breakthrough, you let us know.
Yes.
You do something that changes the world, you can let us know. You know?
Okay, yeah, right.
Okay, I'm going to stop the recording now. So I'm going to wave goodbye at the camera. Thanks, Chau. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye.